As the centaurs fired their weapons, Mrs. O'Leary climbed her way up to the monster's back. Then the dragon lunged for Percy. Then Percy plunged his sword deep into the dragon's left eye. The monster screamed and reared from the pain. The rest of the battle wasn't looking any better. The centaurs were getting overwhelmed by all the enemy soldiers. Then Annabeth appeared out of nowhere on the dragon's back. She jammed her dagger into the dragon's scales but couldn't make a dent. The dragon roared and coiled, launching Annabeth in the air. Luckily, Percy caught her just before she could break her neck. Then there was a rumbling sound in the distance. It wasn't a sound you'd hear much in New York, but Percy recognized it immediately. Chariot wheels. Ares! A girl's voice screamed. The Ares cabin came to the rescue, and Clarice was leading them. The Ares cabin? But how did Rachel know? Annabeth asked. Percy had no answer, but at least now no one could say that the Ares cabin wasn't brave. Ares to me! Clarice shouted. Her voice sounded a little higher than usual, but Percy guessed that was no surprise considering what she was charging toward. While her cabin mates went to keep the enemy soldiers busy, Clarice jumped onto the dragon and ran for its head. Just as she was about to plunge her spear into its head, poof, it spat out poison all over her, and she collapsed on the pavement. Then the dragon's full attention was back on Percy and Annabeth. But just then, bonk, someone threw their shield at the dragon from down the street. But what they saw made no sense. It was Clarice? But that was impossible. If she was there, then who was that girl who got poisoned? You want death? She shouted at the monster. You've got it! She picked up the spear from the fallen girl, and... jab. The spear was launched into the monster's mouth, zapping it with 10,000 volts, and its whole body exploded into dust. Her siblings stared in awe. They've never seen anyone take down such a huge monster so quickly and single-handedly. But Clarice didn't care about that. She got down on her knees next to the imposter. She pulled off the helmet, revealing... Selena? Her features, that had once been beautiful, were now badly burned from the poison, so much that no amount of ambrosia or nectar could save her. Rachel's words rang in Percy's ears. Something is about to happen, a trick that ends in death. Now he was seeing what she meant. Clarice held Selena's head up. You stupid Aphrodite girl, Clarice sobbed. What were you thinking? Wouldn't listen, Selena said weakly. Only would listen to you. So you just waited until Chris and I were out on patrol to steal my clothes while I wasn't looking and pretended to be me? Clarice asked. And not one person realized? She shouted to her siblings. You idiots! You all knew where I was. How could you not know it wasn't me? Don't blame them, Selena said. They wanted to believe I was you. Besides, it's the least I can do for all I've done. She pulled out a necklace from her pocket. Hanging on it was a scythe charm, aka the Mark of Kronos. They all couldn't believe it. Selena was the spy. It's all my fault, she said. The pine tree, Charlie, the attack on camp. No, Clarice whimpered. No, it can't be. How can it? Why would you? Before I liked Charlie, Luke was so nice to me. Later, I wanted to stop helping him, but then Luke threatened to tell. He promised the ones I cared for most wouldn't get hurt, but he lied. And ever since Charlie died... Percy turned to Annabeth. She looked like someone yanked the world out from under her feet. Forgive me, Selena said weakly. No, Clarice cried. No, no, you're not dying on me. You hear me? You're not. It's okay, Selena said. It's okay. I just want to see Charlie again. I just want to see Charlie. She didn't speak again. She didn't move again. She didn't shed another tear again. Selena was gone. Clarice cradled Selena in her arms. For a moment, they could have sworn Clarice's eyes glowed literally like fire, just like her father. She got up, picked up a sword from a fallen demigod, and went to avenge her best friend. Thanks to Clarice, most of the enemy soldiers were cleared away in a jiffy, and she saved a whole lot of trouble. Even without her armor, that girl was a demon. For a moment, Clarice was as invincible as Percy was. In fact, she almost seemed like she was glowing. It's the blessing of Ares, Dahlia exclaimed. I've never actually seen it in person before. I gotta go help her, Percy said. She'll be overrun before she knows it. No, she's buying us time, Chris said. You have to stay safe until Kronos shows up again. I'll make sure she comes back. She'll get exhausted eventually. Percy, Dahlia called. My hunters and I can stay here and stand guard. You should get to Olympus. I have a feeling you're going to be needed up there to set up the final defense. Come on, Percy, Annabeth said. The lobby was jam-packed with campers and satyrs. When Percy and Annabeth stepped inside, the Stoll brothers caught their attention. They told Percy that the doorman had fled. Because of that, the defenses for the entrance to Olympus were now disabled, which meant now anyone could walk right into the elevators and go straight up, which meant they were desperate for reinforcements, which they didn't have. Maybe that's not entirely true, Percy said, looking out the window. Hold that thought, guys. He opened the front door and whispered a favor in his dog's ear. She licked him, and Shadow traveled away. Then, Percy spotted Grover in one corner tending to Linnaeus. He sounded really sick when he spoke. Grover, is that you? He murmured. Despite all the things he had said to Grover before, Grover had blinked back tears and said, I'm here, Linnaeus. Did we win? He asked. Yes, Grover lied. We drove the enemy away. All thanks to you. Told ya, the old satyr mumbled. True, Leda. True. He closed his eyes for the last time. Grover blinked back more tears, then he put his hand on the old satyr's forehead and whispered an ancient blessing. Linnaeus's body glowed and shrank into a single yellow carnation. I should plant this, in the gardens of Olympus, said Grover. Me and Annabeth are going up there now, Percy said. Come on. As the easy listening music played, Percy thought about the first time he'd rode this elevator up to Olympus to return Zeus's missing master bolt. It was only 3 summers ago. He was only 12 years old, and he went up there completely alone. He was really glad that Annabeth and Grover were with him now. He had the feeling that this might be their last adventure together. Percy, Annabeth said quietly. Her voice was shaky. Whatever happens next, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about before, and you were right about Luke. I know you tried to tell me. I didn't really want to believe you until we learned how he used Selena. Now I know. I hope you're happy. I'm not sure why that's supposed to make me happy, he said. She put her face against the wall and didn't look at him again. Well, sure is good to have the old gang back together again, Grover said. Just the 3 of us, headed for a showdown, the fate of the world in our hands. Oh look, here's our floor. Once again, Percy and his friends stood on the doorsteps to Olympus. The only movement was in the parks, which had been set up as field hospitals. Will Solace and the Apollo kids tended to the wounded with some help from some naiads and dryads. Mr. D's son, Pollux, tried to insist that he could still fight, but Percy convinced him to stay put. and stay safe with the wounded. It's just a personal favor, okay? Percy told him. Sure, he could have told him that it was what his dad had asked for, but Percy didn't want to accidentally embarrass the guy. Fine, Pollux said. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover continued walking up the high steps.